I'm here with session guitarist Tommy Webb, and Tommy is a great session guitarist, works a lot with Marshall Records as well as other artists, and a great educator and a fan of the rock school guitar method using the graded exams, and you've been doing a lot of teaching, helping younger players enter those exams and have a lot of fun learning. Today we've been finding tones, we've been discovering some tones here at the Marshall studio, and we've been looking at funk tones. And funk is one of those kind of genres that spans quite a few decades, really, starting, I suppose, in the 60s with bands like the Meters. We've been looking at tunes like Sissy Strut, and then that really went through into the 70s and the 80s, through that whole sort of disco era as well. That was a lot of funk sounds, right up until the 80s and the 90s, where you got artists like Prince that were using that kind of funk guitar sound in their music too. And there's lots of those pieces to choose from within the rock school electric guitar syllabus. So later you'll hear us sort of playing some funk things, probably slightly earlier than the Prince stuff, more that kind of 60s, 70s funk sound. But let's talk about the amplifiers that we used and then come on to talk about the guitars as well. So starting with the amp, how did we create that funk tone?
Okay, so with the amp, we're not using any overdrive really. Pretty clean as an amp, and I started off with all the mid bass and treble at 12 o'clock in the middle, and then from there worked through tweaking to get the sound. So we decided with a bit more treble than we've used before, and then to get that kind of crisp, twangy-ish sound, we rolled back the bass and then used the guitar's pickups to get the bass that way, rather than having the amp too muddy. We run it pretty dry, so we didn't use any reverb, any kind of space-time effects, just pretty dry, and yeah, minimal gain, just nice and clean.
And I think that's the sort of distinctive thing about funk sounds, isn't it? They're not fat, they're not necessarily like tinny or harsh, but we are rolling the bass off and accentuating the mids and the trebles. So we're very lucky that we've had lots of Marshall amps to play with while we're here. If you've got a different amplifier at home, you can still achieve very similar results, roll the bass back a little bit, push the mids and the trebles a little bit further forward. Guitar-wise, we decided to go for
a Stratocaster, yeah. So using the single coil pickups for this, it was a nice change from the humbuckers in the Les Paul, and you can really tell how it changes the sound of the amp. As they're lower output, you're not going to get as much compression. It's going to be not a softer sound, but a little bit thinner, and it gives you that funk tone, which is really percussive and clear. With the pickups, as we took the bass back on the amp, if we were to go on the bridge, it would be too tinny, too harsh. So we're using the neck. Today we used a mix of the neck and the middle, which gives it that kind of really percussive, rhythmic sound. The volume and the tone, they were all up, but in our jam, it was a bit too pokey, a bit too tinny, so we rolled the volume back a bit just to mellow it out a bit. But yeah, not thin, but no compression, and yeah, neck pickups.
And I think that's a good tip, that you've got volume and tone. I'm guilty of just leaving them all the way on all the time, but actually even when you are playing, you can just reach down and roll the volume back a little bit, or roll the tones back a little bit, just to change the sound. And you'll hear some of that now. You'll hear our jam. You'll also hear just a little bit of kind of funky chord playing from Tommy as we play that sort of early or late 60s, early 70s funk sound in our jam.